Back in the day, I was thinking when I started doing vehicular homicide cases, that's how they start you in a homicide squad, typically as a prosecutor, before you get to the big cases. Believe it or not, this would have been a probationary sentence with no jail time 30-something years ago. Today, they're whoppingly huge sentences. I can tell you, just comparatively speaking, we put somebody in jail for 20 years on a double fatality in an accident case with an individual who had a prior history and they were under the influence. So each state's going to handle it a little bit differently. And what is she essentially saying, this prosecutor, is that the break he's getting is that they are being served concurrently. This issue about whether you can consec a sentence 4 times for the same act by the same defendant at the same time, I assume each state has its different laws, but in Jersey, they're very reticent to keep stacking over and over and over again consecutive sentences. But with a case like this, where the aggravating factors are so clear with the prior history, I think the judge would have been completely within their rights to do, in fact, consecutive sentencing. Look, it's these cases are horrible. They're the worst cases I handled as a prosecutor. Not this guy so much, because I'm talking about the ones who do it for the first time and they're in a DUI fatality, typically young. They had their whole life ahead of them. They didn't mean anything bad to happen to somebody and had tragic consequences. This guy was on the radar. So I think it's okay. I personally would have went a little higher.
In the 4 deaths, 3 children, that's where I'm hung up.
Yeah, and Bob is exactly right. There's no slam dunk that you were going to get them to run consecutively anyway. And I think, Bob, the key that I think people need to understand under these circumstances is that by not going to trial, he's really doing these families a service. It's almost as if, and again, I don't want to, put too much on this kid in terms of, doing anything good, but he's not forcing them to live through this incident, having to testify and all the things that would go along with this. And there is some value in that.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's so true, Michael. And there's no question about the fact that the prosecutors spoke to the victims' families before this happened. And I have found that they're usually very reasonable, believe it or not. They understand this is a young person. They probably were very relieved that he was accepting responsibility, to your point, and they're not going to have to go through a trial. 17 and a half years is a really, really long time. But at the end of the day, with every murder case I ever tried, whether it's a death by auto or an actual outright murder, shooting, or whatever, the families walk away and they may feel that there was a sense of justice, but the courtroom goes dark, the courtroom goes closed, and then that sad reality that their loved one is gone and it'll never come back really comes back to the forefront. I get goosebumps when I think about it. They're terrible cases to handle.